CityCast Pittsburgh is brought to you today by Jones Dairy Farm. They are a 7th-generation, family-owned and operated meat maker with products like dry-aged bacon, all-natural sausage, and America's favorite center-cut Canadian bacon. Their premium meats are all gluten-free, perfect for busy mornings, and available all over the place here in Pittsburgh. I checked out the map on their website, jonesdairyfarm.com, and got back dozens of our grocery stores. You can even get their sausage in pork, chicken, or turkey, all no preservatives, no additives, no MSG, nitrates, or fillers. Just fresh ingredients from Jones Dairy Farm, making breakfast better since 1889. Today on CityCast Pittsburgh, it has been a year in our region, from extended drama around selling the iconic U.S. Steel to a Japanese company to a presidential assassination attempt right here in our own backyard. With so much news, there were bound to be stories that maybe did not get their due. So today we are looking back on some of the biggest, goofiest, or most underrated stories that you may have missed in 2024. It's Friday, December 20th. I'm Megan Harris, and here's what Pittsburgh's talking about. I'm with executive producer Mallory Falk. Good morning.
Good morning.
And CityCast contributor Meg St. Esprit. How's it going?
Good. How are you?
We're doing so good. This is our very last news show of the year. Mallory, are you breathing a sigh of relief yet?
Breathing a sigh of relief, but waiting for some major story to break between recording time and hit and publish.
With the way the year's gone, it would not be surprising.
Yeah. Well, kick us off, actually. What was your favorite Pittsburgh story? The biggest breaking news alert that made you, I don't know, have feels, laugh, cry, I don't know. It could be obscure. It could also just be one that you kept coming back to, like you thought about all year.
Yeah, for me, and I know I've talked about it on here before, but it's the loose horse story. I mean,
you are always our horse girl.
Yeah, I'm the resident horse girl at CityCast. And I mean, so one time it was swimming in the river, and then another time it was just trotting through Brighton Heights.
But it was the same horse.
Yeah, but the reason I think it just caught my attention is there's this sort of like whimsical factor to it. As you said, like the world has had a lot of chaos recently. Pittsburgh has been in the news for some really wild stories this year. But that horse just trotting through Brighton Heights, like it just made me smile. I realize it's not safe and it could cause an issue. Thankfully, no animals were harmed in the making of this joyous little story. But it just, I don't know, it buoyed me. When I saw it, I was like, that's the energy I want to take into 2025.
I mean, that horse did look really happy in every image. Yeah, like just trotting down Brighton Heights, looking so excited to be out in the wild.
A very regal looking white horse.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's beautiful.
Mallory, what about you?
So mine has to be the Yammer Yager bobblehead heist, where thousands of bobbleheads that were honoring this hockey legend got stolen. I think because this image of just like all these heads bobbing along while someone was on the run with them brings me joy every time I picture it. And it's a story where like no one was truly harmed. They made their way back. Pens fans still got them. All was well.
Yeah, that was late in the season. Gosh, back in the spring now.
I did not hear about this, and I am surprised I didn't because I love weird news. But yeah, the visual of it is just like, was it noisy when they were stealing them and they're all like wiggling around?
Well, stay tuned through the end of the year and you might learn a little bit more about that. We've got an episode coming up. Mine is probably a weird favorite, and it's not something I'm actually happy about, but it's just absorbed so much of my professional life this year. Our city budget is really precarious, to say the least, and our listeners have heard us talk about this a bunch. You are going to keep hearing about it. The party will keep going in 2025. But I just read so much about this and like what it looks like when a city in Pennsylvania goes broke from back in the early 2000s. So now, like as a reporter and an adult, watching some of those same signs crop up this year has been really fascinating, and trying to make sense of it all, like both for ourselves and also for our listeners and readers, has tapped into this weird, nerdy spot in my brain that has just not been awake for a little while. It's very strange to see it all play out in real time.
You know, have a lot of friends that work in nonprofits and human services across the city, and it's really concerning just to think about, how much these crucial programs are really affected by this. And yeah, it kind of feels like a train barreling ahead and just really unsure what's going to happen.
This is the opposite of a, regal horse running wild.
It is, honestly.
Yeah. This story is not sending us into the new year with delight. But it is an important one.
It is an important one. So anyway, we're going to start the show with some substantive, consequential stories that you have maybe missed, and then get into some weirder, goofier ones. Meg, you start us off. What is an important story that you think may or may not have been overlooked this year?
I think for me, it was some reporting I did with Aaron Ute for Public Source about changes in the family court system in Pennsylvania. And this story straddled the year. We first reported on it in December 2023, and we updated in the spring when Senate Bill 55 actually passed. Mm-hmm. So we followed these changes as they moved through the legislature. Essentially, the law was looking at a legal tactic called parental alienation, which is where one parent turns children against the other parent. Mm-hmm. It does happen rarely, but more often it's weaponized in the court system, one parent using it against another. So Pennsylvania did make some changes this year to protect children. Those were that they will look more closely at each custody situation where there are allegations of violence or abuse. They will presume supervised physical custody in cases where that's proven. So they'll start at the get-go with supervision rather than waiting for something to happen before adding it. And the most important one, I think, is they'll provide training to family court judges about abuse and parental alienation because honestly, family court judges don't receive a lot of training at this point, and it's a really complex topic. So I just thought, it should be on everyone's radar. You never know when domestic abuse or violence is going to affect someone you care about. Giving the timeline to enact this bill, which passed in April, it's only been in effect starting this fall. So there's not really any data yet on how it's reshaping the court system, but it is a start. So I feel like it's something Pennsylvania residents should keep an eye on as we see these changes actually begin to roll out.
Meg, when you say look more closely at the custody situation where there are allegations of violence or abuse, that makes my whole brain start blinking. Shouldn't we already be looking extremely closely at that?
You would think, but I did work for a time in this system. And first of all, the volume of cases is very high. And I think that's one of the issues is because they're just trying to move people through. But also the underlying factor is, again, that there's just not a lot of training about what some of the red flags are for these issues, some of the things to look out for. And so I'm really hopeful that training that they're, going to be focusing on will automatically make judges look more closely at each custody situation.
Yeah. And I mean, Meg, you've obviously looked at this way more closely than I have, but I feel like I've seen stories pop up where there are these instances where children will say they've been abused and then their abuser says, no, my ex is the one who just planted these ideas in their heads. And then their own stories about what's happened to them get discounted. That's my understanding of how this gets used against children and the parent who's actually protecting them.
Absolutely. The protective parent is often labeled as the abuser. If you look in the show notes at the link to this story, mm-hmm. you can see there's even court transcript about kind of going back and forth over what is more severe, actual physical abuse or these type of manipulations that go on in a family that is splitting. So it's concerning, and it's hopeful that we're making some progress to listening to the protective parent more often, but definitely keep an eye on it.
Okay, Megan, what about you? What's a story from this year people might have missed that you want to draw some attention to?
Yeah. So one that I've been watching that I think has gotten, I don't know, maybe more relevant in the past few weeks. There's been a lot of scrutiny this year around this company in Butler County that makes ghost gun kits. So that's the DIY guns that have no serial number and therefore cannot be easily traced.
Wow.
In case you missed it, police are saying that Luigi Mangione, who's accused of killing the United Healthcare CEO, that he allegedly used a ghost gun to shoot Brian Thompson in Manhattan. So Mangione went on the and was later spotted close to here in Altoona. But investigators say that he may have made this gun using a 3D printer. So 3D printing all the pieces that then make up a gun. It just feels like a good moment to maybe talk about this company that is right outside of Pittsburgh that's also been at the center of some big legal challenges this year.
It feels so dystopian to me that you can print a weapon right now.
I know.
It just makes me really anxious as a mom with kids in school, which there's gun violence everywhere, but schools is on the forefront of everybody's mind, especially this week.
Yeah.
I try to ease those fears a lot by reminding myself of the admittedly few checks and balances in place for gun owners. But all of that kind of goes out the window with these ghost guns. There's no serial number, no registration. So yeah, it just spikes my anxiety. And knowing that they're being manufactured right here it's concerning.
Yeah. Well, and it also goes back to like how they're procured too, right? So like it skips that traditional buying process. So there's no background checks either to ensure that the person purchasing it should have a weapon in their possession.
Yeah. And I mean, just to clarify here, there are a couple different ways to make ghost guns. So one is what they're saying Mangione might have used where you print it. But the other is that you can buy all the component parts to assemble the gun yourself. You can buy them all separately or buy a kit. And that's what this company in Butler County does, sells these kits.
Yes. And they're called JSD Supply. They sell just the kits. And a big story that you might have missed this year is that back in April, as part of a settlement with Philadelphia, the company JSD Supply agreed to stop selling ghost gun parts here in the state. Philly had sued them along with another company that's based in Nevada because they said the companies were intentionally undermining federal and state laws by designing, manufacturing, and selling them without the background check. Like that was the pivotal part. So the company settled with Philly and agreed not to sell those parts in our state for at least the next 4 years. So only a temporary ban, not a permanent one. But I think equally important, this same company, JSD, they also own Eagle Shows, which calls itself Pennsylvania's largest gun show. And as part of this whole settlement, they have to block vendors from selling ghost gun parts at their shows for 2 years. So good news, bad news in all of this.
Yeah. I think these kind of lawsuits and settlements seem at the moment to be our best chance at gun safety measures in the state because Pennsylvania has this rule that cities and municipalities can't actually pass stricter gun safety measures than what the state has in place.
Which is wild to me, but Pittsburgh keeps trying and it keeps getting struck down.
Yeah, Pittsburgh's tried.
That is
Philly
wild.
just tried, and it made its way to the state Supreme Court, which just reaffirmed this rule. Producer Sophia Lowe and I actually talked about this on the Friday News Roundup a couple weeks ago. So if you missed that episode, we're going to put a link in the show notes. Doing research for that, I learned that this is not unique to Pennsylvania. A lot of states across the country have the same kind of rule, which is wild to me. So like on the one hand, I'm glad there's some kind of route for trying to create more restrictions. But this also only lasts for a few years. It's not something that's solidified into law. So like you said, Megan, it's kind of like mixed, these results.
Yeah, totally. Mallory, what about you? What's the news story you've been following?
Yeah, so I actually wanted to run through a few state laws that passed this year that folks might have missed. And the first one, I'm going to start with a little bit of trivia. This year, the state legislature passed a law requiring all schools across the state to hold a moment of silence each year to mark a specific event. This is the only mandated moment of silence across the state. Can you guess what it's for?
No idea.
My first thought was the National Day of Prayer, because that was a thing where I grew up, but I don't know if Pennsylvania's jumped the shark quite that far yet.
No, I don't think yet.
Yeah, I think there's still a little separation of church and state.
Just a
here.
little. Although we are a Quaker state, we are a Commonwealth, so I wouldn't say it's a large separation.
That's true. That's fair. Yeah. So not quite, Megan. This is actually to commemorate September 11th.
Oh.
Okay. Actually, I remember my kids talking about that. I don't know when it passed, but they've definitely done that at school.
Yeah, it passed earlier this year, and I think lawmakers were concerned that there's, a generation coming up now that doesn't remember that day. They weren't alive yet, and so they want to make sure
the entire tagline for 9/11 is "Never Forget." So I guess we have to remind the kids now.
I have to say, I took my kids out to Flight 93 Memorial in the Laurel Highlands.
It's so beautiful.
It really is, and I think some folks might think that you shouldn't take your kids there or that they can't handle it. I will say it's really beautifully and tastefully done. And I would encourage you, if you do want your kids to know more about it, it's definitely a family-friendly stop.
Yes.
So this moment of silence in schools for September 11th, that's one law that passed. Another I would love to draw people's attention to is a way to get money you might not know is lying around in your name. I'm curious if either of you have ever gone to the state treasury site to see if you have any unclaimed property.
I did, because my mom heard about this I think possibly on KDKA, and she told me to go check. And I had a check. It was under $100, but it did come. And I mean, that's something, right? I was hoping it would be, $10,000, but I'll take 100.
Yeah, it doesn't tell you the exact amount. I also checked just because I knew that this was coming today. I don't have anything, but my partner does. Also $100. It's listed under an apartment that he had like 15 years ago.
This is why you got to check the site.
Yeah.
So essentially, like Pennsylvania right now, it's holding on to over $3 billion in unclaimed money. This is for
so
things like
much.
maybe a check that never got cashed. It can also be a refund you didn't realize you got, maybe a stock you forgot about if you're playing the stock market. So basically, the state passed a law this year so that the Treasury Department can automatically return unclaimed property to people that is valued at up to $500.
So I had no hope of getting $10,000.
Well, not automatically.
But you can get it.
Yeah, you can get it. Right now, you have to look on the Treasury site to see if you have any unclaimed property. And then if you do, you've got to fill out some forms to get it. You're still going to need to go through that process if you're entitled to more than 500. But now if it's anything less than that, you can just get it automatically from the state.
Very cool.
And it was pretty simple, honestly. I hate paperwork, but it did not take very long. So go check it and get your money.
Yeah, we're going to put a link in the show notes, but it's patreasury.gov/unclaimed-property. Again, that'll be in the show notes if you can't remember it. You might have money lying around that you did not know existed. Okay, there's one other law that passed this year that I wanted to talk about. It passed in the state legislature, but it applies specifically to Pittsburgh.
I love it when they do that.
Yeah, this was State Senator Jay Costa was really the one pushing for this at the state ledge. This is called LOOP, which stands for Longtime Owner Occupant Tax Exempt Program. I see why they made it into an acronym. Are either of you familiar with this one?
Not at all.
No, I had not heard about this, but once I read up on it, I thought this is much needed.
Yeah. So essentially, it's a tool to help prevent longtime homeowners from getting priced out of their neighborhood, losing a home that they've been in for years or maybe that their family has been in for generations. If they live in a neighborhood in Pittsburgh that's really rapidly gentrifying where home values are just kind of skyrocketing. So there is a version of the LOOP program already in place in Philly, and now Pittsburgh leaders can create their own version where essentially if you've lived in a house for a certain amount of time in a rapidly gentrifying neighborhood, then you can get a tax break.
It seems like a really equitable program. I know I've definitely been concerned about some elderly neighbors in our community because home prices are shooting up in our community big time, and wondering what that would look like for them. So
yeah, a bunch of our leaders held a press conference to celebrate when this passed. Gainey himself said no resident should be pushed out of their neighborhood because of development. So this program will help make sure people can continue to call their neighborhood home. He and city council still kind of have to hammer out the details of exactly how this is going to look in Pittsburgh. So that's something we will be keeping our eye on in the coming year. But I just saw that there's now also going to be a push, it looks like, in the state legislature next year to try to expand this statewide, because right now Philly's been doing it. Pittsburgh is now allowed to do it, but people in the rest of the state want to be able to put these protections in place as well.
Yeah. And before we move on from our law section, our Pennsylvania laws, I did want to throw out, I have seen a ton of late breaking reporting this week saying that Pennsylvania may actually legalize recreational cannabis in 2025. Like not just the will they, but that they likely will, which is a very different turn of phrase. So anyway, while we're manifesting good news, maybe keep that one in mind for next year's bingo card.
I'll believe it when I see it, but you sound hopeful.
For over 50 years, Burlington's legacy has been great deals on coats for all weather conditions. So before you're caught unprepared for the winter weather, head to Burlington for name brands, quality items, and surprising fits for every family member. Stock up on coats, sweaters, and accessories before the cold hits, so you can finally stop avoiding the elements and start living comfortably. Warm up at your nearest Burlington location less than 1 mile away. Burlington. Deals, brands, wow.
This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. The holidays mean more travel, more shopping, more time online, and more personal info in places that could expose you to identity theft. That's why LifeLock monitors millions of data points every second. If your identity is stolen, their US-based restoration specialist will fix it, guaranteed or your money back. Get more holiday fun and less holiday worry with LifeLock. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
Okay, on to some sillier news this year. Meg, what have you enjoyed most?
You know, I have to say the death stares phenomenon. I don't know if
what?
the death stares phenomenon. Okay, on Facebook, there's a group called Death Stares. And the entire point of the group is to post pictures of stairs that are deadly looking.
So all of Pittsburgh.
Well, Pittsburgh is a main character in this group. I mean, it's a worldwide group, but like Pittsburgh absolutely rules the roost. Like we have, you know, the steepest street in the United States. We have so many public staircases.
And a lot of them are closed off to the public. Like they're death traps.
They're deadly. Yeah, they're deathy.
I've seen these and I thought I was just being served more Pittsburgh content than death stares in other cities because of Facebook understanding where I live or something. But I guess it is just because Pittsburgh actually has more death stares per capita than anywhere else.
No, we really do. There's been stories from most of the big outlets in the city. Pittsburgh Magazine did a story on it. Public Source did an essay on it.
I missed this completely. I love it.
It's incredible. And I think just like the horse story, it's the reason people like it is it's rife with puns and jokes. It's a unique thing that sets our city apart, which we know a Yinzer loves. And, you know, my kids and I now, we're pulling over when we see like a really deathy set of stairs because we want to take a picture and put them in the group. And then they'll say like, how many people liked our death stairs, you know? So I think it's just a fun story. Of course, CityCast covered the history of Pittsburgh stairs long before this trend in 2022. I was looking up an old episode.
Yeah. I mean, our city steps generally, but I think ours was like sort of happy as like a way to like hike them and learn their history, not to talk about how deathy they are. Valerie, what's a goofy story that you've been paying attention to?
Yeah, so I was thrilled to see earlier this year that Kate Spade launched a collaboration with Heinz, a limited edition capsule collection, which I love using the terms capsule collection and Heinz ketchup in the same sentence. A press release from the time described it as condiment couture. And I also saw a headline saying ketchup is no longer a condiment, it's a hot sauce, H-A-U-T-E.
Oh, I love it.
Also wonderful. So, you know, examples of this line were like a crossbody bag that looks like a ketchup packet. There's a pair of white loafers with like Heinz ketchup packets on each toe. Packet is sealed and one has like ketchup squirting out. And even though a lot of this stuff is gone already because it was a limited edition collection that launched earlier this year, those loafers are still available and they are currently on sale.
Fun fact, I have seen those loafers in the wild. I was at a Giant Eagle and I fell out. I was trying so hard to surreptitiously take a picture of them.
That's incredible.
That's amazing. Because the thing that's funny is, so these are on sale right now for $164, but they were $228. And I feel like the disconnect between the pricing on these things and like Yinzer culture.
Yeah, like the market who would most likely buy it are not the people that have like $228 just lying around to throw on white loafers.
Right. I gotta say though that there is a lot of ketchup themed clothing available in the city. I was just down at the Heinz History Center with my kids. They have the best gift shop. And they were desperate for Heinz ketchup pajama pants. So I think that's probably more in our price point. But these are fun. They're fun
I'm
for
really
sure.
into Heinz History Center. They have a tomato stress ball. I love that thing. I play with it in the gift shop every time I go.
Yeah.
I'm also with you on like pajama pants maybe being more in my price point. But apparently last year, Hunt's put out an exclusive collection with a popular brand, Lisa Says Ga. So I am glad that now we have collections at every price point and there is this one like elevated designer option for folks because we can't let Hunt's beat us out.
Fair enough. Mine is also food related. So the Milkshake Factory, a local chain here, they had to get rid of their beloved Jake Shake back in the late spring, early summer. It was that signature shake honoring Jake Gensel. You know, he was a Penguins player. So every time he scores a goal, you get half off the shake. But then the Pens traded him to the Carolina Hurricanes. So the Milkshake Factory had to drop their Jake Shake. Y'all are giving me blank stares. Is anybody?
No, I know about it. Actually, one of my friend's daughters is obsessed with it. And so this was heartbreaking for her. But I didn't realize they had like a retirement party for it.
Yeah, they had a whole retirement party for the Jake Shake, not for Jake. Jake's still playing in the NHL. It had cookies and brownies and hot fudge and caramel. And they put like number 59 because, you know, the Milkshake Factory has all those fancy chocolates too. too. So they made like a 59 in chocolate. That was his Penguins number. And they made this like whole tribute video full of fun facts about the shake. Like, according to them, Pittsburghers have had enough of the Jake Shake to fill almost 10 Olympic-sized swimming pools. I feel like that falls into that category of like Americans will use anything to measure something other than the metric system, you know?
Right.
I also think it's funny that they measured in swimming pool size instead of hockey rink size. Like,
Right?
why did they leave that on
Hockey
the table?
rinks differ in sizes, so actually that would make sense to me.
Okay, that shows
Missed
me sports
opportunity.
knowledge.
Yeah.
Apparently there were 159 half-off Jake Shake days since that shake was introduced in 2018, which I think is actually an important detail because when they picked the Jake Shake, they started this whole promotion back then. Gensel was good, but he was not like a phenom or anything. And then he became one. He became one of our best scorers. So there were a lot of Jake Shake days that the Milkshake Factory probably was not initially prepared for. Anyway, all of that said, very sad we lost our promotion. They brought in another one. So now there is something called the Rusty's Shake. Doesn't have quite the same ring to it without the rhyming. But so they picked him back in October. I noticed it when I went to a Pens game the other day. So this is for Brian Rust. Same deal. Whenever he scores a goal, you can get a Rusty's Shake for half off on the next day. I actually did this the other day because I happened to watch the Pens game, knew he'd scored, and was walking by a Milkshake Factory. And I was like, yes, now is my time. I like the recipe better on this new one. So it's
Really?
Oreos, brownies, hot fudge, and whipped cream. Plus you still get a little chocolate bar in the top, except now it's a number 17.
I gotta say, I was not familiar with this at all, but the one way to make me actually care about a sporting event is to give me a discount on a dessert. So I really wish I knew about the Jake's Shake, but I'm glad that now I am aware that the Rusty's Shake is a thing, and I will start paying attention to Pens games now.
Hey Atlanta, say hello to Small Business Help from Apple. That's right, we're here to make starting and running your business simpler. From helping you choose the right devices to setting them up hassle-free, we can help you build your business in no time. Speak to a business expert and get the help you need at no cost whatsoever. At Apple, we're open for your small business. Go to apple.com/smallbusiness or visit an Apple store to learn more.
This is an ad from BetterHelp. This holiday season, do something for a special person in your life. You. Give yourself the gift of better mental health. BetterHelp Online Therapy connects you with a qualified therapist via phone, video, or live chat. It's convenient and affordable and can be done from the comfort of your own home. Having someone to talk to is truly a gift, especially during the holidays. Visit BetterHelp.com to learn more and save 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com.
So one more round of ridiculous news that you may have missed in 2024. Mallory, you're starting this time.
Okay, so this is some celebrity news. Celebrities have come to Pittsburgh to both hurt themselves and heal themselves on our city's hills.
I know where this is going, and I'm so excited.
I love this pairing so much. So Jay Leno was in Greensburg last month for a stand-up comedy show. Apparently, he had a craving for wings, so he started walking down the hill from his hotel to Dino's Sports Lounge, and he took a big tumble. He ended up breaking his wrist, busting the left side of his face so badly he had to wear an eye patch to hide the swelling. And to me, this just feels like the most Pittsburgh injury ever, just like falling down a steep hill on your way to get some wings.
I gotta say, though, I saw the picture and it's not that steep of a hill. Like, I feel like this like sort of like gives away Jay's, maybe his age, or maybe he just like felt too confident. I don't know. Like, it wasn't a big hill by Pittsburgh standards.
I was going to say, though, by Pittsburgh standards, he is used to walking in much flatter areas of the country, perhaps.
Yes.
I saw him, though. I mean, he looked pretty bad after the fall.
He did look terrible, yeah.
This is like the second major facial injury he's had, though, recently. Like, he just had facial reconstruction surgery after something else happened with a car. So,
I didn't know that.
Honestly, thoughts and prayers to Jay Leno. And maybe don't come back here for a little while. No offense, but...
I mean, come to Pittsburgh. That was Greensburg. Greensburg did that to him.
I do just want to share one clip from Kimmy Rhodes on Instagram summing up this event, because I think she speaks for all of Pittsburgh and Greensburg.
Could you imagine walking out of that restaurant and just seeing Jay Leno tumbling at you in Greensburg, Pennsylvania? The mind fuck? that would have gone through my brain. I know several people from Greensburg. Did any of you see this? I need to know, because this is single-handedly the best thing to ever happen in Greensburg, Pennsylvania. But in all seriousness, Jay Leno, I hope you're doing okay, buddy. Those Pittsburgh Hills, man, they look easier than they are. Been there, done that.
That's what I'm saying. They look easier than they actually are. I think he was just too confident. I also did check with my Greensburg friends for what it's worth, and apparently this was the spot for wings back in the day. So he chose wisely. He just didn't get there.
Oh, I hope he eventually got them. Probably not if he had to go to the hospital.
Yeah, so that's like the low point of our Pittsburgh Hills. But on a more triumphant note, Pittsburgh was the backdrop to Jeremy Renner's recovery from a truly horrific injury. I somehow missed this story at the time that Renner almost died in 2023. He was crushed under a snowplow and broke like more than 30 of his bones.
Wait, what? For real?
Okay, so I asked my family this, if this was on their radar, and they were like, yeah, that was a huge story, but somehow I missed it.
I was aware of this, but I think that's largely because it was like so widely shared in Pittsburgh's running community, because there was a commercial that came out as part of his healing process.
Yeah, that's actually what I want to talk about, is that commercial. Because where Pittsburgh comes in is, of course, he's the star of the TV show Mayor of Kingstown, which is filmed here, although it's set in Michigan. And so, at the time when he got injured, his doctors thought he might never be able to walk again.
Which is crazy.
ICU.
Like, he's literally a Marvel superhero,
yes.
Hawkeye. Like, they get bounced around all over the place, and like, I don't know, it's scary to think about like the really delicate humanity in play with that.
Right, like new fear unlocked. Like, I've never thought about getting run over by a snowplow, but now I will.
Yeah, I just try to like stay away from any large and fast moving machinery in general. But yeah, so he had this long recovery period. I think he has a bunch of like bolts and stuff in his legs now. But he got to this place where he could walk again, he could act again. He came to Pittsburgh to film the most recent season of his show. And while he was here, he shot this commercial for Brooks running shoes. So when you watch the commercial, it feels extremely Pittsburgh. Like, he's running on the West End overlook. When he's stretching, there's this beautiful view of downtown in the background. There's a scene where he's running up a Pittsburgh hill. I'm going to play a little clip from the ad.
It's everything to me to be able to move. I'm proud that I'm walking. I'm proud that my family's thriving. And I'm proud that I've taken something that could be perceived as tragic or an accident and turned it into something, turned it into a superpower. Proud of that.
That makes me emotional. That's beautiful.
I also loved what he told the Trib about his like overall feelings on Pittsburgh. He said, quote, "I think it's really beautiful, but I don't think I'd really be hanging out in the rivers. They're kind of chocolatey. I don't think I'd be a river rat in Pittsburgh." Which, very fair.
He's missing out. I swim in the rivers all the time and have not grown a third arm yet. They're fun.
Not yet, Meg.
Well, I mean, I could use it with 4 kids. Like, I would love an extra arm.
Also, if you are a fan of Mayor of Kingstown and have some free time, they're casting right now for extras. I know a couple of people who have put in applications. I've not heard whether anyone was successful, but it's paid if that's something that interests you.
Yeah, it looks like it's starting January 15th of next year into late May. So if you got that time in your schedule, go for it.
Yeah.
And I also just wanted to note this huge Yinzer bragging point. The smash hit Wicked. I don't know if you guys saw it yet.
Yes.
But our very own Jeff Goldblum is the wizard. And at one point in the movie, there's this giant stone bust of Goldblum as the wizard. And I just wondered, have we thought about carving that into Mount Washington? I mean, we've got a giant Mr. Rogers. Just saying.
I think there's definitely opportunity. I might vote to put it in Homestead, though. I feel like that's more like close to home for him, And also a lot of space over there for some public art.
That's true. Maybe they'll just give us the prop and we can just Gorilla Glue it up.
That would be amazing. Well, I have a little bit more animal news to round us out. So South Park is where the bison roam, if you're familiar. They got 2 new additions, 2 new babies this year. That was back in March. But there was some drama around the whole thing.
Right, because they ended up getting named twice, if I remember correctly.
They sure did, which I don't think was on purpose. So the county decided to name them, which is not a thing that they had historically done. One of them was named Reese, R-I-I-S, after Paul Reese, who was the founder of our county park system. And the other one they named Roddy, after Jim Roddy, who was the first county executive. He passed away earlier this year. But they had already been named by this group called the Friends of the South Park Buffalo Preserve. So that group had started naming them years ago because they realized that the county wasn't doing it. And their names were Dakota, meaning friend to all. That was derived from the Sioux tribe. And then Ilu, I hope I'm saying that right, meaning beautiful. And that was from the Zuni tribe. Shout out to one of our readers, actually, Caitlin B., who let us know about all of this. I guess the South Park bison, again, had been being named for a while, but in the past they had picked names like Rosie and Violet and Clover, which are all very cute. But as they learned more about this connection between bison and our indigenous nations, they decided to name the new babies after, or I guess in honor of their Native American history. And they were not all that thrilled about the county coming in and naming them again, and suggested that perhaps parks and playgrounds are more the space for former politician names. Not beautiful animals.
Yeah.
Okay, as long as we're talking about news related to creatures, there is one other story I really loved from this year, from September. The Pittsburgh office of the National Weather Service shared a photo from their weather radar. It looked like some kind of rainstorm, but it was actually spotted lanternflies. Like, the swarm was so bad that it showed up on their weather radar. And when I say I love this story, I actually hate it because I hate that we are still dealing with these things, but it is hilarious to me.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I knew that you could see bugs, but I hadn't really thought about it in terms of lanternflies. Huh.
Yeah. And a KDKA meteorologist said that, like, the way you can tell that it's bugs and not rain is because on their radar, rain moves in kind of a steady pattern and it has these consistent, strong signals. And bugs move more randomly with the wind, and they're like weaker, scattered signals on the radar. But I wish we didn't need to know this knowledge. I wish we didn't have a spotted lanternfly infestation that requires you to draw a distinction between rainfall and spotted lanternfly swarm.
It's kind of disgusting and fascinating all at once. I am already fascinated by meteorology, and I had no idea that they actually had to learn to differentiate between rain and bugs. It's gross and cool.
Disgusting and fascinating overall. Feels like the energy we have had in 2024 to some degree.
Yes, right. Disgusting and fascinating on a shirt. Yeah.
Yeah. Cheers to, I don't know, easier, goofier, lighter news in 2025. That's all for today here on CityCast Pittsburgh. Last reminder, our All Request Live on the Radio open house party is today. We will be downtown with snacks from 9 to 1 at the Benedum Trees building on 4th Avenue. We are on the 10th floor. And if you can't join us in person, we totally understand. You can stream it online at wzum.org. We will be taking a break between now and the new year, but you will hear a few of our favorite episodes during the holiday to keep you company. We will be back with your guide to January in Pittsburgh on January 2nd. Have a great holiday, everyone. I feel like you're living up to the same reputation that Steelers fans do all over the world.
Oh, it definitely has that vibe. Wait, we're not loved all over the world? What?